The committee doesn't have a chair currently. I am Margaret Nardowitz, town administrator, and I'm a non-voting member of the committee. We do have 4 voting members of the Traffic Safety Advisory Committee here. If you could all just introduce yourselves, go around. Fred, you want to start?
We're Fred Cummings, the acting highway superintendent here for the town of Berlin.
Okay, and Tim?
Tim Wheeler, I'm on the planning board.
Okay, and Chief?
Eric Shartner, Chief of Police.
And Anna?
Anna Crane, I'm chair of the Capital Planning Committee.
All right, wonderful. And I'm looking through the attendee list. We have a number of attendees here tonight. And I do not see, I don't see Mary Porter. Mary Porter is a finance committee member and non-voting member of the Traffic Safety Advisory Committee. But with the voting members here, and in lieu of having a chair in place, I am going to go ahead and call this meeting to order at 5:33 p.m. This meeting is being held on the Zoom platform and is being recorded for future broadcasting. So there are a number of items on the agenda tonight. The first is approval of prior meetings minutes, and I have to apologize to the committee. You would have just received last month's minutes today, and if you haven't had a chance to review them, I'm more than happy to add them to the next agenda for your next meeting for approval, along with 3 other sets of minutes. Preference?
I think that would be a good idea. And Margaret, I'm perfectly willing to keep minutes from now on, if that would help you.
Okay, we actually have Public Safety Administrative Assistant Abby Viana here in the audience who, I don't know, Chief, is Abby willing to start taking minutes for the committee?
Yep, that's why she's on tonight.
Perfect.
No. Yes, that's wonderful. Hi, Abby in the audience. I'm willing to work, Abby, I'm willing to work with you on drafting the minutes and the format and things. So thank you, Abby. Okay, so we're going to hold approval of prior meetings minutes until the next meeting, and we'll go ahead and schedule a next meeting date at the end of this meeting. The next item of business is to elect a new chair. And once that chair, once the committee votes the new chair, and that chair then will run the meeting and accept nominations for vice chair. So I will accept any nominations for chair of the Traffic Safety Advisory Committee. Chief Shartner, Chief Shartner, Chief Shartner.
I'd like to nominate Chief Shartner.
I'll accept.
Okay, all right. So motion made for Chief Shartner, seconded by Fred. Is there any other nomination? Hearing no other nominations, I'll call for a roll call vote.
Fred, aye.
Tim, I.
Eric, aye.
Anna, I.
All right, wonderful. All right, Eric, you can go ahead and take the meeting now, and you'll want to call for nominations for vice chair at this point.
Oh, yeah. So any nominations for vice chair?
I nominate Fred.
Accept.
You guys are great.
All right. Is there a second?
Oh, I'll second.
All right. Roll call vote. All those in favor? Tim?
Aye.
Anna?
I.
And I'm an aye.
Wonderful. All right, Eric. I will, from this point on, I will assist you as needed as we go through the agenda, and I will be happy to promote individual. Oops, looks like someone has their hand up already in the audience.
Yeah, I'm trying to find my agenda right now.
Oh, Chief Clark's here.
Oh, good.
Okay, I'm promoting him. Okay. Oh, and Mary's here. Okay. Well, they just missed all the action on chair and vice chair, but they can catch up on everything else. Okay, they're both coming. Awesome.
Margaret, I'm just trying to pull up the agenda I
Oh,
printed everything
okay.
but the agenda.
All right, so I can go ahead and introduce the the next agenda item if you'd like.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, so the next agenda item is parking regulations. The board established parking regulations for the town on September 14th, 2021. And in those parking regulations, there were some noted concerns with respect to parking prohibitions. Two concerns in particular. Item 1B, prohibited parking upon a sidewalk. And in most cases, that is an issue. And then item 1S, prohibited overnight parking on any public way. So the Traffic Safety Advisory Committee discussed in your last meeting and the meeting prior that these pose issues in residential areas like Carterville, where there are narrow roads and limited sidewalk areas and limited front yards as well. So would the committee like to discuss possible amendments to this now, or would you prefer to hold this to your next meeting and discuss it in more detail?
I just as soon wait, given the other issues we've got on the agenda tonight.
Okay. Anyone all in agreement? Consensus on that? Okay.
Yeah, I agree on that.
Okay. All right, Chief and Mary, I'm sorry, I don't know how long. I've got another attendee in the audience raising your hand. So for any attendees who are here with comments, the next agenda item is regarding the petition submitted by resident Mary Porter and signed by a number of individuals on Carter and Highland Streets. And I'm happy to take, I'll be promoting people as we go through. So I think we'll go ahead, given that we're going to hold on the parking regulations for now, we'll go ahead and move on the stop sign requests, the petition, and then comments that have been submitted by residents in that area. Mr. Dona, Eric, would you like me to?
Yeah,
Allow
I'm
him-
I'm still going through the 106 emails I got between.
Okay. Yeah, there were a lot. There were a lot. So I'll try to, I've got them all in front of me and I'll try to keep them organized so that we assure that residents who have submitted comments have a chance to speak to them and any other attendees have a chance to speak. So I suggest that we begin with Mary, the petitioner and the requester of the stop signs to speak to the request and the petition. Mary Porter.
All right, thank you, Margaret. So I've been on this committee for, I don't know, maybe a year and a half. I'm a liaison from Finance Committee, but on the subject of the stop signs, I'm speaking as a citizen, a neighbor in the Carterville area, living on Highland Street, just beyond the intersection of Carter and Highland. So there was nothing in instructions I was given in August of 2020 when I filed my original request for street signs that I'd be required to go out and gather petition signatures and so on, but I've done it. And it's, I have to say up front, it's disappointing to me that the town took no action on an August 2020 request for signs. But, and there's a lot of opinions. I liked what Anna had to say in an email that came through, which is we're having a constructive conversation around the issue. And I believe that people in the neighborhood are in general agreement that we have a traffic issue, and the issue is volume of vehicles, speeding, just people are always speeding. And then the nature of the road, which is really, as you're in the center of Carterville, it's a one-lane road. You know, it functions as a two-lane road, but houses in Carterville were built before people had automobiles, and there's very little off-street parking, and so it's a very congested area. There are young children, there are a lot of people that walk through there, people on bicycles and so on. So it's become increasingly dangerous to step out onto the street in that area. And that's a change. And you know, I don't like change particularly, and I think most people don't, but this is a change that's been thrust on us, I think, in part due to the use of GPS devices. So we have people bypassing the 495, 290 interchange, or just getting off Route 117 in Bolton because it's so annoying. And then they've got a 4 almost 5 mile straightaway down what starts as Berlin Road and becomes Highland Street, becomes Carter Street. And so we have that issue. And then we have the Steve Venacasa and the Highland Ridge development. And we got people there that are completely unresponsive to town needs, the needs of the citizens. So they've got this relentless stream of construction trucks. And if that project is built out to the maximum, we're going to have 64 new housing units and figure at least 100 cars running through the center of Carterville all the time. So the town really has a traffic issue in the center. And I'll speak to my request for the stop signs. I did speak with an officer on the force in Berlin, and that's where the idea came from for me. But speaking as a liaison from the finance committee, it's one of the most cost-effective ways for the town, for the taxpayers to deal with the traffic. And Fred and others, you can tell me if I'm wrong, but I think it's less in terms of installation and maintenance than other physical means of controlling traffic. And frankly, I want to put it out there that my first choice about how to tackle the problem of traffic in the center of town would be to make Carter Street one-way northbound between Woodward Avenue and Highland Street. So I'd like to throw that out there. I don't think that was in any of the emails, but I think it is a solution that addresses the actual current infrastructure, which is it's a one-lane road. So, and maybe, let's get really crazy here and let's make the road gravel. And you could pave a little bike path. You could have a little sidewalk, make the car lane gravel. Anyway, aside from all that, but it is a serious problem. I'd love to see us address it. And one last comment on the stop signs is that I know people are concerned about this change, and I'd say give it a try. If you do it for 6 months, do it for a year, see what it's like. And if it's not suitable, if it's causing problems that people are concerned about with this kind of change, then do something else. But I'd like us to do something, and nothing is forever in how we approach this. But one thing seems to be pretty clear is we have a problem, and it's only going to get worse. And I'm concerned about safety. So let me stop there and let other voices be heard, and hopefully we can continue what Anna has characterized, and I agree, is a very constructive conversation around this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Okay, I am going to recognize individuals who have submitted written comments to the select board. And Mr. Dona, I am going to allow you to talk first. You have your hand raised, and I am allowing you to speak. Are you there?
I am.
Okay, go right ahead.
Don't know if I need to be visible or not. Can you?
No, you don't have to be. If you could just introduce yourself and give your address.
Ray Dona at 36 Highland Street. I think most of you folks know who I am. I am the one that sent out this email to the Traffic Safety Committee. I'm not sure I'm using the correct name.
Yes.
But I think my email pretty much speaks for my thoughts. I've joined this meeting just to allow other people to comment on my email. Certainly one comment that I hadn't heard, which is very appropriate, is consideration of Carter Street being changed to a one-way avenue. But I think there may be other choices that we haven't heard about. One additional choice that I certainly did not put in my email, but might be a consideration, is maybe a separate entrance and exit to the Highland development. There is the possibility of a road being constructed behind Wheeler's Garage that would then intersect Carter Street. Another possibility. I don't know that we've talked about a full range of possibilities, but I think we need to start with that. As you read in my email, I'm not willing to automatically accept a stop sign approach for Highland Street and Carter Street. So I think we probably need a little more discussion on that front. So that's essentially the comments I have. If you'd like to ask me questions or bring up further comments, I'd certainly be happy to add my input. So with that, I'll let you take it away.
Thank you. Chief, would you like to hear, Chris Gill has her hand up. She also submitted written comments. Would you like to hear from her before the committee starts having an open discussion regarding the comments received?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're all in agreement. We
Okay.
should hear everybody before we start
Yep.
discussing.
Okay, good. Okay. All right. Thank you, Ray. I'm going to promote Chris now, or I'm going to allow Chris to talk. Okay, Chris, you can unmute and provide your comments.
Hi there, good evening. This is Chris Gill, and Jeff Gill is also here. And so Jeff actually has probably more to say about it than I do. We are in agreement that there are safety concerns on this road. There is a lot of traffic, high speeds. We are opposing the stop signs. We would like to see what other options there are besides the stop signs due to noise pollution and air pollution that would cause, especially for us in this home where Jeff Gill has a significant lung disease and asthma, and working from home 5 days a week, the noise with stop signs in front of the house would be unbearable. So we were open to other suggestions. Jeff also wants to talk.
Yeah, hello. So we live
Hi.
right in the intersection. We're at 3 Highland Street. We're right in the intersection, and my wife pretty much explained a lot, but I have a couple questions. I think one or most of them are for the chief. And the first one being, is the speeding problem in this neighborhood any worse than the speeding problem in the other neighborhoods in the community? And I know you put the boxes up, so what does the data say about speeding? I think it's been exaggerated a little bit about people going 60 and stuff like that. And the other thing is, if you could you tell me the last time Berlin police wrote somebody a ticket in the last 2 years on Highland Street or Carter Street?
So the
For speeding.
traffic issue, speeding is townwide. It's not just limited to Carter Street. It's the entire town. As far as the last time somebody wrote a citation on Carter Street, I'd have to look that up. I do know that a couple of weeks ago, I think we did 4 or 5 days straight of radar operations, which netted 0 citations in that area. As far as the data from what Chief Galvin did, I'm not sure. I think that box that he used is defunct and out of commission. We do have some new stuff that's in the Sallyport right now that Fred and I are trying to get together and post, and Carter Street and Highland Street are on the high priority for the first place for those signs to go up.
Yep, I'd like to throw out possibly, speed bumps as a possible alternative. I think they would work great.
A gradient speed bump, similar to the ones that are on Gates Pond Road. They're long, extended, with ample notification that you're going to hit a speed bump. We were thinking if one was put more towards the bottom of the hill by the Schaefer's, and then one down near the library, because there's a lot of traffic with 19 Carter. There's a lot of traffic with the library, with small children. We see lines, I see lines of small children ranging from kindergarten to maybe first, second grade during the day with some sort of school program walking through here. So we were just, that was one of the options that we thought would be beneficial.
Yeah, I mean, I'm for the speed, I guess they call them traffic trays now, if I'm correct, Fred. You know, I'm for any resolution that's going to help with this problem. You know, I don't want to be the expert and say this is going to work, because not everything works all the time. You know, I'd like to go with the option that's going to work most of the time, versus an option that will work some of the time. You know, I definitely understand the concerns, and, you know, I feel for you in that area. I mean, ever since the smartphones came out and the Waze app came out, it's made life in Berlin, from the center of town east, a headache anytime anything happens on 117 in Bolton or on 495.
I just can't imagine the trucks are, you know, stopping right out in front of my house. You know, just even the diesel pickup trucks, never mind like Mike Sawyer's truck and Paul Wheeler's truck, you know, they'll be going through those gears. It'll be shaking our house. I mean, we can hear the trucks when they're going slow now. They rattle our house, you know.
Not to mention the exhaust fumes that would be pouring out of there, you know, for every single truck car. And there's going to end up being lines of cars because it's going to get congested.
Right.
So you're going to have cars sitting idle as well as stopping and accelerating.
Speed bump would just slow down. Especially if it was marked well, it would slow them down for sure. And we probably wouldn't have to deal with those other issues.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest issues on Carter Street is the placement of the 20-mile-per-hour zone sign. I mean, it's right at the intersection. You know, Fred and I had talked about it last week. You know, like, what would it take for us to move that 20-mile-an-hour speed zone 300 more feet to the north, and, you know, expand the speed zone. You know, I know in the past, I know it's backfired on us when we've tried to decrease speed limits in areas. When we do our official data, it's actually increased speed limits from what we wanted them to be. You know, remember on Whitney Street, we tried for 25. The state came in and said, nope, 40. So I don't necessarily want to get into that, but
Right.
you know, I mean, we got to do something. That speed limit sign at the intersection does no good whatsoever. You know, that speed limit sign needs to be another 200 or 300 feet in the northerly direction from where it's posted.
Right. Yeah, I'd like to just make one other comment on the proposed one-way as well. So I leave my driveway and go left towards the center of town daily. I'm going to after this meeting. For me to just have to go down by Wheeler's garage and come out at Ben's and take a left down there, you know, in the morning, or, you know, at 5 o'clock when there's a lot of traffic. I mean, that's a very sharp, hard left compared to up at the street. I think it would be much harder to take a left down at that gas station than it would. And I never have a problem pulling out up here at all. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm personally not a big fan of the one way. That's going to limit emergency responses as well. Not just residential traffic. That will add to any emergency response as well.
Okay, all right.
Thank you.
Chris and Jeff, do you have anything else to add right now?
No, thank you very much.
Okay, if you do later, you'll have an opportunity to speak.
Thank you.
Okay, Maureen Carville is another resident who submitted written comments, and she had her hand up, but I don't, oh, yes, there she is. Okay, there she is. All right, we're gonna promote Maureen. She submitted comments on this as well.
Okay. So I want to thank you guys for letting us have the opportunity to talk about it. And Mary, I really appreciate you bringing this to the community and working for a year. I didn't even know you've been working for a year, so I really appreciate that. In terms of what's been said so far, I agree that a stop sign may not be the best solution, and for the reasons given. and what I said in the email for noise pollution and air pollution. And I also don't like the idea of going to the past Wheeler's Garage to take a left on that, not just because of the way that the street, it looks like that street is designed to merge, what is that, west, as if you're heading to the, taking a right at the end of that street. And also, depending on how many cars are in, but sometimes you can't see. There's a real visibility problem there because there's often cars all lined up in that triangle. And so sometimes I feel can be dangerous to try to eke out enough to be able to see to take a left turn. So there's that. And the only other question I would have about making it a one-way, which I don't think I'm in favor, but I want to consider it, is in your experience, maybe some of the police officers, if you make it a one-way, does that mean the people going in that direction are going to go faster because it's not two-way traffic? Because I do think that people speed going both directions on Carter Street, not just coming down the hill. And so I'm not sure that that's going to address the problem. And I wanted to see what other people thought about that. Thank you.
Thank you,
Yeah, I mean,
Maureen.
I would agree with Maureen. You know, if it is one way, people are gonna have the entire road to themselves. Yeah, there is a potential that, you know, like we always say, for every action is a reaction. And if they have 22 feet of road to travel on, they may go faster.
All right, Maureen, do you have anything else to add right now, or?
I don't think so. Thank you.
Okay, all right. If you have something later, you'll have an opportunity to speak.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The other written comments were received from Greg Schaefer of 19 Highland, and I know Greg is here. I don't see him. Oh, he's raising his hand. Okay. All right. So, all right, Greg, if you just want to unmute, you'll be able to state your comments.
So I had suggested that moving expanding the 20-mile-per-hour zone further up the hill, you know, with, say to the Verizon building or something like that. And then have it on the southbound side, having a sign saying there's 20 miles per hour ahead. You know, I think that might help. And sort of, if we went the speed bump route, perhaps the speed bump at where the railroad tracks are paved over would be a sensible place for it. For one of them, and then down by the library, the other one.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right. Thank you. Okay. All right. So we've heard from the folks, from the petitioner, requester, and folks that submitted written comments. Is there anybody else in the audience that would like to add comments, questions, suggestions for the committee's consideration? Oh, okay. Walter Moody. Okay, Walter, you can unmute and go ahead and express your comments if you like.
Yes, that's correct. Muti, M-U-T-T-I.
Moody, yeah.
I live at 63 Carter, and I have a son that lives at 59 Carter next door, and I have another son living at 16 Highland, so right next to Mary. And first of all, I'd like to thank Mary for all the work that she's done and is doing. I appreciate your work. We've been talking about this in the neighborhood for quite some time, the speed issues. And I just have a couple comments. One was that I don't know that a stop sign is our best option. I know before the meeting started, you mentioned something about a parking ban. I need to know more about what that is about also, but that's for another time, I guess. Because driveway space is limited here on Carter Street. It's sometimes we have to park in the street. We don't have a lot of choice. And I sometimes want to park in the street just to slow the traffic down. That's my way, and I don't care if, I mean, I do care. I don't want anybody to get hurt, but it does slow the traffic down. What I haven't heard was those smiley signs that say, the speed limit is 20 and you're doing 37. And I haven't heard that brought up yet, and I don't know how expensive they are. That's something maybe Fred could comment on. But that was one thought. Another thing is, I'm probably more in favor of speed bumps of some type, or law enforcement, greater law enforcement, if that's possible, for like where the railroad tracks are, and also where the library is. That seems the most reasonable at this particular time. Let's see. That's two things. And I think that's it for now. Maybe Fred could comment on those signs if he knows anything about those, or maybe even Eric.
Thank you, Walter. The town actually has purchased those, and that's what Eric was referring to earlier. So they can speak to that.
Yeah, Mr. Moody, the signs that Eric was referring to are the speed limit signs. They're solar powered that we just haven't had a chance to connect to get them put together and put up in place yet.
And there are 4 of them in total, and they're mobile radar speed signs that will actually collect data as well. So they're not the smiley ones. I was disappointed that we couldn't get the smiley and frowny face ones, but they do say thank you, and they say slow down. So they have the same relative effect. So as Chief mentioned earlier, he and Fred are working on getting those put together and deploying them.
So I'm just a note from the finance side of things. I'm looking at what we paid, what the town approved this year, and I think it's for the 4 signs, 12,000. Does that sound right?
That's right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 12,000 for the 4 signs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're the lower end signs. The signs we wanted, I think, were around 6,000 or 7,000
Each, right?
each. Yeah.
Yeah. So these were the less expensive option that we agreed to spend on last year.
Yes. So they are here and awaiting assembly and deployment. And they will be able to be easily moved from one location to another. Committee, Maureen has her hand up again. I'm going to allow her to add comments.
I'm just
Okay, go ahead, Maureen.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I have 2 questions, I think. One is, how much is it to put in one of the speed bumps that people are talking about? So not the ones that like drop out your engine or feel like they're going to, but the more gradual ones that just make you slow down. So how much would be 2 of those cost? And I also am just curious how effective I do think that those types of signs where you flash the speed limit, when I see them, I do slow down, but I also think there's a certain percentage of people that ignore that. So I'm not sure in terms of long-term if that would be an effective solution. So I just wanted to see if others, again, if the police chief might know, actually they are quite effective at eliminating most of it. What's your experience with that?
Well, I mean, we don't have a lot of experience with that because we don't have them, but I think like Fred and I talked last week, and when we missed once again, we were supposed to meet up. I had to go to a meeting to put them up. Our priority is to get them up on Carter Street in the center of town. That's where the 4 are going to go to begin with, and we're hoping that even this week, I was even hoping to have them up, before Christmas, for us just to give it a try. It's going to be a learning curve for us all. I know the traffic trays we put on Gates Pond, you hear pros and cons. I've heard more cons than I have heard pros from residents, just because there's no ideal placement for those, especially with trucks going over them. They still make banging noises, and of course cars that don't slow down for them. So I think the biggest thing is, let us get these signs up on Carter Street and try to give us a few weeks to see if there's any noticeable difference. I know we're not coming into the best time of year to measure traffic because it's not nice out, maybe people are going a little slower this time of year. But, like I said, before we do anything drastic like traffic trays or, maybe even before we do stop signs, let's try to put up the speed signs.
Can you still hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. I love the idea and I thank you for investing resources into the center of town in our neighborhood, because we certainly can benefit from that. But one of the things I just want to also throw out there is I'm glad to hear you're saying for a few weeks in terms of the data collection, just because I do think that, Mary's been working on this for over a year and, we have neighbors with young children on either side, and on one side, they have a 2.5-year-old and the woman is pregnant again. And on the other side, we've got 4-year-old boys. And so if we were talking about 6 months or a year, I would say that, geez, that's kind of long, but I'm hoping that you're only talking about, 8 weeks or maybe 3 months or something, but not longer than that. Is that accurate?
I don't even see 8 weeks. I mean, let's just get the signs up and let's get some data.
Okay.
I think it'd be a good test, if Fred and I can coordinate this week, getting them up, having them up vacation week when the buses aren't running and there's probably gonna be less traffic, and it will show that there is less traffic on vacation weeks. And then, I'd like to get the first couple of weeks of January in there as well. Hopefully the weather stays on our side. Obviously if it snows every day, our data is not going to be too valid.
And I want to, Chief, I want to add that Ray Dona's email expressed concerns with blinky signs in general and potential light pollution. So it's good that you've clarified that you're looking at a couple of weeks just to see what the effect would be. So
the signs we have they're not designed to be put up anywhere permanently.
Mhm.
Obviously the price tag would be pretty outrageous for permanent signs, but not opposed to it if that's what it's going to take.
All right, Mr. Muti has his hand up. All right, go ahead,
Yes.
Mr. Muti.
Yeah, thank you. On a positive note, I've had probably close to 8 opportunities to call the companies that put markings on their trucks and to tell them that their drivers are going too fast. And I've noticed those particular companies, one, they thank me and they say that they're going to notify their employees. And I've noticed that those companies have slowed down, like Russo Trucking it's slower now. And there's a few other trucking companies that I've called. Not everybody has numbers and names on their trucks. But I'm just saying that is a positive direction, is just to call these people and say, hey, look, your truck's going a little bit too fast. Slow it down, please. And anyway, that's something that we can all do. It helps police the neighborhood. That's it.
Thank you. Okay, and Keith Carville has his hand up. All right. Okay, Keith, you can go ahead and give your comments.
Thanks. Yeah, I just wanted to add to the fact that where the 20-mile-an-hour speed limit sign is really isn't very helpful because it's right in the thick of things. And by putting the radar signs further up the road, I think don't those signs say something like the speed limit is and your speed is. So it's going to alert people that they're really going way too fast in the speed zone, posted speed zone area. And by expanding that speed zone area, up the hill a little bit, I think that would really wake people up to the fact that, all you have to do is take your foot off the gas and coast down that hill and you're going 50. So I really do think there's an unawareness to how egregious people are speeding. They're just kind of cruising down the hill. And then I also don't know what to do. I mean, it's an old neighborhood and the road's very narrow. And as Walter already pointed out, there's a lot of on-street parking. So, even if there aren't little kids in the road, you got to be careful that there's not somebody getting out of a car. So you really do need to slow down in that area. And I don't know if the sign should say something like congested area or I don't know. But I really appreciate this whole discussion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and Ray Dona has, Mary, I'm sorry, you're on the screen, so I can't see. If you want to raise your hand, you can go ahead and physically raise your hand. Ray Dona has additional comments or questions. Get him, okay. Okay, Ray, you can go ahead.
Yeah, I don't think we necessarily have to look to only one solution to this problem. There may be multiple items here that we want to invoke. So just a comment along those lines. And let me stress, as well as I did in my email, that I think enforcement is a real strong part of getting this problem solved. There are many communities where speeding is recognized as a problem and the police take pretty aggressive action. I can tell you of a few places in New Hampshire where when you drive through Troy, New Hampshire, you know that if you're more than 5 miles an hour over the speed limit, your chances of getting pulled over are very, very likely. And so maybe Berlin needs to become one of those communities where if you're speeding, you're going to get nabbed. Just a thought along those lines, I think is appropriate. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and Chris Gill has her hand up. Okay, Chris? Or Jeff, or both?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, hi. Yeah, I just wanted to comment. I mean, so this is directed toward Eric a little bit, and I know Eric, and he knows my father was a police officer for over 40 years, and I have the utmost respect for the authority of the police officer. But I agree with what the last gentleman just said. So our company was in Hudson, who I work for, and we've moved about a year and a half ago to Bolton. And I drive down 117 every day. It's a little congested, but when it's not, I don't speed through Bolton, because I've learned over the years that if you speed through Bolton, you get a ticket. They don't give you warnings. They write fines every time. And I remember I went down and complained to the police with the old chief, and one of the officers sat in my front yard, and he pulled over about 6 people, but he didn't give anybody a ticket. And I think that this is a non-issue. If people are speeding down the road and they get tickets, they're not going to speed anymore. I know that 3 tickets within a year, you lose your license. And I don't want to see people lose their license, but I really think that if it was just maybe patrolled or just enforced, I know that involves possibly going to court if people want to fight it or something. And I don't know how that works on your end, Eric, with your offices, but if people get tickets, they're not going to speed down that road. It's going to be a non-issue. People do not speed through Bolton because they know they will get fined every time. Yeah, I just want to throw that out there.
Well, I mean, I think a lot of people have perceptions of different towns, and I think a lot of outsiders have that same perception of the Berlin police, that they won't speed through our town because they're afraid of getting a ticket as well. As far as whether or not the officer stopped 6 people and didn't write anybody, I mean, I don't know what the speeds were. Were they high enough for a court to substantiate and say yes, that's a traffic fine? For every ticket that gets appealed to a judge, cost us around between $180 and $263 to send an officer to court over a $105 ticket. So it's a serious cost analysis. So, you got to make sure your tickets are good. Otherwise, you'll see our overtime budget for court skyrocket. So I think, and the other thing too, is I can't take officers' discretion away. We can't mandate that they write civil citations every motor vehicle stop. I mean, that's actually against the state law. So, I can't take away the discretion of the officers, but, definitely, I mean, you talk about Bolton, they've got 13 full-time officers. We have 9. They have 4 more officers to cover their streets. Same size town. You know, that's what a lot of people forget. We have 2 cars at best working per shift, and we handle anywhere between 800 and 1,000 calls a month. So the amount of traffic in between, yeah, it does get a little tight some nights. You know, some nights they can do traffic for 4 or 5 hours. Some nights they never get to do traffic at all, or days, I should say, too. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely a consideration. You know, it's a discussion I want to have at a department meeting next month with the officers, obviously taking over. I haven't had a chance yet. We get so many other logistics going on and other priorities like this to get done. But yeah, I mean, traffic enforcement is the #1 complaint in town. There's no doubt about it. It has been for 26 years that I've been here.
Okay. Oh, Mary?
Margaret, have we gotten through people in the audience who's at?
I'm not seeing any hands raised at the moment.
I want to pick up a couple of things. One is, I'm not hearing anybody say the traffic's okay in the center of town. So I'd really like the town, people who are here, who work for the town on this, in this conversation, to keep this as a priority, this area. But I also want to recognize what Chief Chartner just said, is that the issue with diverted traffic through Berlin, the cut through traffic and speeding is everywhere. And Pleasant Street is probably getting worse problems than we are in the Carterville area. 62, it's a mess. I was on it earlier today, and you know, don't ticket me, Chief, but I was in excess of the 35-mile-an-hour speed limit, you know, pushing 40, and I had somebody tailgating me for miles, right? And I was trying to stay at 35, but it was dangerous, you know. It's like, so we have a larger issue that I think that I intend to take up with our state rep and senator to get to DOT to try to get to a priority to fix the 290, 495 issue. But what can we do today in small measures? And they can be temporary. And I loved what Ray said, which is you don't have to have one solution here. And the other thing I want, you know, my neighbors to really understand what Chief just said is I sit on the finance committee, and we push the police department on the budget. And you know, we as taxpayers, if you want an officer sitting there, you better be willing to pay for that officer, because we don't have the hours to do it, right? And one of the things, you know, the reason I asked for stop signs is I internally did all that financial calculation in my head and said, this is the least expensive way for us as taxpayers to get the attention of drivers, to get them to respect how dangerous it is as you come into Carter Street off Highland, and also going the other way and you could put a stop sign at the railroad track, and then it wouldn't be exhaust right there in Jeff's home. I'm right there as well. But particularly the trucks that honor the 20-mile-an-hour speed limit, they are already braking. They're already spewing out diesel exhaust in front of my house. My house shakes when these construction trucks go by. I can't have a conversation when they go by. So we're already there in terms of noise and pollution and the rest of it. That's already happening if the trucks are obeying that 20-mile-an-hour speed limit. And the same thing when they come around that curve to go northbound, they're going to be using their gears. So it's already happening. This idea of whether you slow them with I'm going to try to say the right word, traffic tray or a stop sign, doesn't matter. You know, you need to slow them. Where you put it, we could have a lot of conversations about where you put traffic management. One other note with Fred, the guys from Highway spend a lot of time clearing snow in that intersection of Highland and Carter. and you know, I don't, you know, that's a consideration we need to think about. When you're thinking about traffic trays, does that impact it? Does it not? I don't know. So some of those questions, and I'd urge people to also think about what Ray said again, which is there doesn't need to be one solution. There could be multiple. You could use different devices. Chief, if we're going to do a study on people speeding and you have a sign that says this is your speed, they're going to slow down. So we're not going to get an accurate measure of how people speed. I mean, they have to have, if you want to really record what people are doing, coming and going through this area, you need to do it undetected so that they don't slow down because there's police presence. And so, the signs would be nice. And I can anecdotally, I've watched it when we had the big flashing sign up by the railroad track last summer, traffic slowed. When you have an officer sitting around the bend, traffic slows. The traffic responds to that kind of thing. Walter's comments on the Russo trucks, the Russo guys that are working at Highland Ridge were part of the conversation when the earthworks permit was discussed for Venacasa and the Highland Ridge. And I've been watching all those trucks and the names on them. Russo guys don't speed. That's because they committed to the condition of the earthworks permit, which their trucks are supposed to go 15 miles an hour from Route 62 to Wheeler Hill Road, the entrance to the construction site. And none of the other contractors working for Venacasa do it. Nor is Mark Rhodes doing the 20 mile an hour with his project up at the top of Wheeler Hill. His trucks are speeding. The worst trucks are Orlando Fuel, which fuel the equipment up at Highland Ridge. And that guy is doing 35 at least, or 40 around the bend when you come down, and doing it consistently. So just to wrap it up, I'd like us to do something sooner rather than later. I am not, I'll be happy with what people come to do. Doesn't have to be the first choice I've got. And I'll say it again, my first choice was, it really is, as a long-term solution, we do need to divert traffic away from that street, particularly if we want to keep it as a two-way street. And Ray, I liked what you said. I'd like to see the MBTA line there converted possibly into an alternative entrance exit to Highland Ridge. I think it's a public safety hazard to have only that one road in, particularly because it's located on such a steep slope. You can't, if you have a car roll over, if you have a vehicle roll over on that road, there's no access in and out. It's a very dangerous situation for the number of people they're proposing to put up there. And you can't go around it because of the steep slope. You can't put a vehicle across that slope. So yeah, I'd like to see that. And the stop sign request form that I put in August of 2020 also asked for signs at Highland and Randall. And if you think about longer range, about diverting traffic away, bypassing Carterville, I think we as a town need to think about that in a planning way. Hello, Tim, about how to bypass Carterville with traffic that is just cut through traffic, and do it at a minimum cost to the residents of the town. So I appreciate everybody coming out tonight, because this is the thing that I really like to see people do as citizens, is to get your voice out there. And we don't always get what we want, but if you show up, you'll get what you need. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. All right, we have 2 hands up in the audience. And what I'd like to suggest is once we wrap up questions from attendees, questions and comments from attendees, I'd like to ask the voting members of the Traffic Safety Advisory Committee to begin having discussions on all of the options that have been presented tonight. Okay, so Caleb is in the audience. Caleb, you can go ahead and comment.
Hey, everybody, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. So very happy that this is being brought up, and I appreciate all the effort that has gone into the awareness of this issue. As you may or may not know, I live right here on Highland Street, 16 Carter, so I'm right up the road there by the intersection. I've got 2 kids of my own. I've got 2 nephews that live on the corner there, and then two my neighbor's friends, two young girls that are always out on the bike and walking and everything else. I love all these kids dearly. And what is the purpose here, right? What are we talking about? We're talking about safety first and foremost. We're talking about peace. I think we're all sick of the truck noise and the aggravation and the speed and And then we're talking about the comfort, right? You know, I bought a house here because this is a beautiful small town, and I don't have the constant noise of the city, right? First and foremost, the safety in my mind. So a couple things have been proposed, you know, the stop signs, the speed bumps, all of these other things. One of the things that I'd like to raise, and I apologize for being late if this was raised earlier, the sidewalks on Carter, it's like walking through the Grand Canyon. I mean, I have to walk in the street because the sidewalks are ridiculous. I mean, even that would get people off of the street a little bit. And, you know, God forbid people are still driving 90 miles an hour through the center of town. At least I can walk on the sidewalk. So that's one thing I'd like to raise, and I apologize again. I did have to dial in late, but has there been any discussion about that?
If I could, Chief, Caleb, tonight there really hasn't been extensive discussion on sidewalks. However, the Traffic Safety Advisory Committee has discussed the sidewalks on Carter as part of a complete streets discussion or as part of complete streets discussions. The sidewalks on Carter are actually included in the town's complete streets prioritization plan. That prioritization plan identifies several different pedestrian-based infrastructure projects that the town could accomplish through the state's Complete Streets Grant Program. However, the town is required to fund all the design and engineering costs for those projects. So in that respect, the Traffic Safety Advisory Committee and the Select Board, the Capital Planning Committee have all had discussions on complete streets and design engineering funding to accomplish some of these projects, including the sidewalks on Carter.
Awesome, thank you so much. And you know, I think I've voiced my piece. You know, whatever the solution to this ends up being, you know, the fact that Mary, you brought it all to our attention and are really kind of pushing this forward. I can't say how thankful
I think, Caleb, I think we're losing you.
Oh, apologize. Just wanted to say thank you to Mary and appreciate this being brought up. So, you know, pass me back.
All right. All right, thank you. Okay, and last we have Maureen Carville with comments. Go ahead, Maureen.
Thank you. I just have two more questions. So the first one is, I just want to understand the proposal, or one of the proposals, if we put in the traffic trays. That proposal involves putting trays only on the side of the street that goes into Carterville, or would they be on both sides of the street? So that's my first question. You know, and then the second question is, how much is it, Mary, you might know this, being on the finance committee and whatnot. Do you know how much it is for each one of those types of speed bumps? I was curious. Thank you.
Maureen, we haven't looked at it on finance, and I don't know if Fred's got any data. It's an open question.
Yeah, I spent a little bit of time today trying to find a file that would have held that from the Gates Pond Road project. I can't find it, but speaking with the foreman, for some reason, he believes there was a number of $10,000 a piece thrown out back when that was done. I don't know how accurate that is.
So when those were done, there was $25,000 put into a mitigation fund for traffic calming on Gates Pond Road. And we didn't expend the 25,000 for those two items. So I think your ballpark figure is probably correct, Fred. It may, I think it was somewhere between 16 and 20 probably for the two of them.
Okay. And also to address Maureen's question, I would bet to say that it would go completely across the street, so it does traffic in both directions, just like it does on Gates Pond Road and Marlborough Road.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, I don't see any other hands up at this time, and I'll just go over the list of traffic calming measures that I've heard over the course of this discussion, and then I'm going to step back and allow the voting members of the committee to discuss these options. So, of course, the street sign, the stop sign requests, police enforcement, police presence and enforcement, issuing citations and things like that, one-way travel on a portion of Carter Street, speed bumps or traffic trees, moving the 20-mile-an-hour speed zone sign from the intersection approximately 200 to 300 feet in a northerly direction from the intersection, and placing the LED mobile speed signs up the hill in a couple of locations for a couple of weeks each to be able to collect data. So there you have it. Thoughts on some short-term and then long-term solutions?
For short term, let Freddie and I get the signs up there and collect some data before we start doing anything. And I think that a combination of a lot of things, like Ray was saying as well as Mary, I think between LED signs, potential traffic trays, and expanding the 20-mile-an-hour zone. I mean, I think that would be our key to trying to slow traffic down without an option.
I want to pick up on something Keith said about the 20-mile-an-hour sign, that the location as you come down Highland Street into Carter Street, that you see it kind of late. So Chief Sharpner, if we weren't expanding that 20-mile-an-hour sign, but just move the sign, say, to my front yard, so it's more visible as you come down the hill?
Freddie and I actually talked about actually moving it back up closer towards Muties, like right at the end of their property, right where the sign was before the railroad tracks. Yeah, just right there. Put the sign up. Actually,
at the railroad tracks.
Yeah, on the north side of the railroad tracks.
Thank you.
But like I said, I'm not sure of the legality of it. You may see us doing traffic out there, but if we can't get the zone expanded, then we can only enforce in that zone, in a smaller zone. It's a pretty small zone to enforce. I mean, it's a 200-yard stretch or 300-yard stretch to enforce. So, like I said, I'm all for moving that sign back, a few hundred feet.
Just got a quick thing on that. I have no problem moving the sign as well. But before Chief Gavin left, he gave me a file that had, it's actually titled Special Speed Regulations for the Town of Berlin. It dates all the way back to 1975. The most recent was done in 1981. And they were adopted by the Board of Selectmen. I think before we can move the sign, they would have to reassign it, because it is all done by feet from the intersection. As it was that 30-mile-an-hour sign that we did reinstall. It shows it's supposed to be 30 feet or 100 feet from Carter Street heading north on Highland, but that puts it right in the middle of someone's driveway. So we used our discrepancy and we just kind of moved it up the street a little bit to give a better line of sight for the person that would have had it in their front yard. But I think before we can move it, the selectmen would have to change the wording in the feet as to where it is placed to make it enforceable.
That shouldn't be an issue. That's something that we could add to the agenda as long as we're prepared with the original documents and a proposal to move the sign with specifics on the new location. I think that would be a relatively easy request. Couple of, did you want to, Chief, do you want to continue your discussion first before taking additional comments?
Well, I mean, does anybody else have any ideas besides Fred, Tim, Chief Clark?
No, I'm all board for getting the signs up. We definitely need to commit to getting a day and do that. That's been the hard part, because I know you've had them for a couple months now. And to at least get those up in the air, I'm not opposed to the calming trays. This time of year, I would be against even a pilot for the one-way, because it would make plowing more of a challenge and time consuming, because that truck would just have to keep making circles to get the road open. So I wouldn't be a big fan of that. I can always look into Mr. Dona's idea about the entrance and exit, which would then come down on a Harris Road, I believe, which is right behind Wheeler's Garage. I don't know what kind of access they have up in there, if that's what he was referring to. I believe that's all I have, with the exception of that. And I can look into more about the calming trays, the company, the amount, so that can be ready for the next time.
Eric, can you remind us of the data, the types of data that these signs are going to collect?
I believe, like I said, we haven't even opened the boxes yet. It should count the speeds, the number of vehicles, the speeds, and the time of the day.
Does it distinguish between, it can't distinguish between trucks and regular
No.
vehicles like the,
No, so it's just an object. It's radar.
Okay.
It's just an object.
Yeah, I was talking to Central Mass about the traffic on Gates Pond Road, and we've specified that we'll probably do a count there in the spring when we can get the cords across the road again. You know, but we might want to focus on some part of Highland or Carter to do a good up-to-date count as well, because then we get a truck count as well as a regular vehicle count. So.
Chief Clark, do you have anything?
Negative. I was just muting because the dog was starting to bark. It's going by the hall.
Okay, so there were two audience members with their hands up. If you, are you okay to hear their comments? Okay, so this is Jacqueline. Okay, Jacqueline, just, yeah.
It's Boise.
Boise, thank you.
Yes. Hi, I really appreciate this conversation and that we're all working towards finding a solution. I just wanted to express my concern about speed limit signs. It's been my experience that they do not slow anyone down ever. The traffic that comes through Carter Street from either direction, it's impossible. I remember when I first moved here, I'm sure I have not lived here as long as most of you have. I moved here in 2004. But when I did, on the weekends, there were horses going back and forth up and down Carter Street. The road was full of horse dung. I loved that. And now I have to be really cautious going to my mailbox to get my mail or pulling out of the driveway. And I like to walk often, and getting across the street to that crazy sidewalk is challenging as well. And I can walk from my home down to Walnut Street and perhaps have 10 cars come flying by. And as I turn onto Walnut Street, I can walk the entire length of that road and not have one car pass me. And then it's in the trucks these days. I don't mean to be so negative, but it's unbearable. It's unrelenting. But like I said, I really appreciate that we're working on some solution. That's all. I just needed to vent.
Thank you, Jacqueline. This is the place to do that.
Okay, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
And then Ray Dona has additional comments. Okay, Ray.
Okay, had to unmute here. Regarding the speed limit sign, I don't know what's involved legally in moving the sign beyond what we discussed here, but my thought is the further up Highland Street we can put that 20-mile-an-hour speed limit sign, the more opportunity it gives the vehicles to slow, and especially where we have trucks. We don't really want a rapid deceleration of a truck. We prefer to have that deceleration spread over a longer time period, or if you will, a longer length of street. I think we get Jake brakes coming on when the truck driver feels he needs to make a very quick or rapid deceleration. So the more we can spread that out, I think it may be beneficial to the noise element of what we're receiving here, what we're seeing here. So that's the extent of my comment.
Thank you. Okay, Tim.
So a couple things. One is that the state has put a high priority on the addition of an extra ramp to the southbound side of 495 onto 290. So, I mean, that is an immediate relief, but the plans are drawn up, and I think the plan is to go out to bid pretty quick on that. And given statewide projects, that's come high on the list, and that's a good sign for the impact it has on Berlin right now. I guess a question for Eric is, in an instance where the municipality wants to request a modification to a speed limit, I guess currently we need to go to the state in regard to those, and sometimes, like you suggested, we end up being put into a corner, and the state says, actually, the speed limit you've suggested is faulty on the low side, so we're going to actually increase the speed. I know there's legislation pending, I guess, in the state to put the opportunity for localities like ours to begin to dictate what happens with speed limits on local roads, and take that sort of having to go to the state out of the loop. At least that's the way I understand it. So I wanted to get some clarification from you on that.
Yeah, there is pending legislation, but as we know, something pending today may come to fruition 5 years from now.
Yeah.
I don't want to speculate on when they're going to get it done. I mean, it should have been done years ago. I'm not even really sure why, because it's not a state road, why the state gets their hand in on it. I think we should be able to not dictate what we do, but within reason, be able to tell the state, hey, we're turning, Highland Street down to 25 mile an hour, then to a 15 mile an hour, not have to spend, 4 hours out there running radar in an unmarked car and, doing all the data entry manually, and, and then come out with something that the end result is not something anybody wants. And I've seen that happen, in the 26 years I've been here, we've done it twice, and both times it's backfired miserably on us. I kind of don't want to go that route yet. That's why I was hoping we can just get the authorization to move that stop sign with what the paperwork that Freddie has. I have it too. I'm actually afraid to open up the book because there's not a white page left in it, and it's very brittle. So I think Freddie has the better copy. I might have the original. So I'm afraid the thing's going to disintegrate on me if I open it up. I can sit down with Freddie and we can go over that and hopefully present something to the board.
Yep.
All right, so Chief, it sounds like the proposed path, short term, is to move forward with requesting the 20 mile an hour speed limit sign be moved, and getting the LED radar speed signs put up for a couple of weeks.
Yeah,
As a
I'd say at least
start.
3 weeks. I'd say at least 3 weeks. And I know the issue Ray had mentioned, light pollution. I think he's referring to those lights in the center of town. Those are bright. Those pedestrian crosswalk lights are much brighter. I think these are a duller, less lumen, color-wise light that will flash, thank you, or slow down. I don't think it's going to light up like a Christmas tree. I'm hoping, fingers crossed. But we'll know when we open up the box and we put them up for a night.
So, all right, so my understanding is if the traffic trays run about $10,000 each, or whatever the cost is, we'd need to submit a request for appropriation at the spring town meeting, correct? There would need to be funding in place for those to be put up, correct? So that's something that the Traffic Safety Advisory Committee will want to discuss in the coming meetings as to what's going to, what you may decide to do in the spring.
Yeah, I think if Freddie gets the quote on it, I think we can always wrap an article and get on the town meeting. And then if we decide prior to town meeting, then we can just take it off at town meeting.
Margaret, could we also look at cost on a stop sign? So it's in the mix for decision making.
Fred, would you be able to get that? Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Finance Committee comment, okay. And I want to go back, Chief, on the question I raised earlier about if you have the blinking lights, drivers slow down, are we really going to get a record of what the speeds are like? Tell me
So-
how that works.
Yeah, so it will register the speed before they probably even see the sign.
So you get it first and then,
Yeah,
then they
yeah.
get the, okay.
Yeah, a typical thing is you'll actually register a speed before anybody even realizes the sign is there.
Thank you. That answers the question. Thanks very much.
Someone asked earlier about the parking regulations. So it might have been before the attendee came to our meeting. So what the Traffic Safety Advisory Committee is not going to be discussing tonight, but at its next meeting, are the parking regulations that were adopted by the Select Board. There are a couple of lines in those parking regulations that would be a concern for Carterville, and one is that it currently prohibits parking on a sidewalk. And the other is that it currently prohibits parking overnight on any public way. So there is a recognition that Carterville and possibly other areas of town have some challenges with these things. So the Traffic Safety Advisory Committee will be discussing possible modifications to the parking regulations in their coming meetings to address this. Okay, does Chief, I don't.
Yeah, I think
There's one more. I'm sorry. There's one more hand up on this item. Okay, it's Chris or Jeff Gill.
Yeah, it's Jeff Gill. I just had one more question. I think it's for Freddie. So if the stop signs did go up, and you're talking about parking, that becomes a 2 or 3-way intersection with stop signs, and there's absolutely zero parking on the street. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. Because then you wouldn't have the line of sight that you would need.
Right. Okay. I just wanted to bring that up. So there'd be zero parking on the street at all.
Right up in that intersection, yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Jeff, you also want to check out the parking regulations, because parking regulations we're going to discuss next week also says that as well. So it's going to affect Carterville.
And that's a good point, Eric. I think the fact that so many people from this neighborhood are here, it would really be helpful if they would send comments to the committee concerning those new regulations, because, I mean, one of the reasons we held up on really disposing of that issue was the concern of what the impact would be in Carterville, where people do unfortunately have to park on the street and on the sidewalk. And, you know, as we begin to talk about complete streets and the expansion of a sidewalk all the way up through there, and potentially a bike lane, and I mean, it physically, it can't accommodate those types of uses. So we do need, and this is an opportunity for folks to pitch in comments about how folks would like to see some resolution to that sidewalk issue, 2 lanes of traffic, you know. And I think it's important to get people's thoughts about the one-way notion. There's pros and cons on that, but I think we'd like to hear from what people have to say. This is a good list of folks from the neighborhood that are here tonight, so it'd be great if they could continue to participate.
For everyone's information, while you're here, if you just go to the town website at townofberlin.com, you can search right on the homepage, just search the words parking regulations, and it will give you a link to find the select board's approved parking regulations.
Question is that, would the intersection of Highland and Carter be considered a crosswalk? People do cross Carter Street there. People who are walking down Highland onto Carter. I'm looking at the parking regulations. But I guess my question is, irrespective of whether there's a stop sign at that intersection, we still couldn't park there, because you can't park within an intersection on a sidewalk or upon or within 10 feet of any crosswalk.
I mean, a crosswalk to me would have to be marked.
And they're not presently marked. It's not presently marked, it's used. The line of children that Chris Gill talked about, that's Heather Simpson's hands-on nature classes.
Yeah.
So they walk down to 19 Carter along that stretch, and they walk back and they go in the woods behind, you know, where the abandoned railroad track is. And they do it pretty much daily in certain parts of the summer.
Yeah, I think the reason why we never had a crosswalk in that intersection was there was never a sidewalk to connect them to. So essentially, you'd be putting them into the front yard of that corner house.
Well, Heather's kids walk on my front yard. They walk on my front yard and I say, yeah, come on, because don't walk on the street, get on my yard,
Right.
especially little ones. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, for that very good discussion. I think it sounds like the chief and Fred and the committee have the start of a path forward. And as Tim said, folks should contact the Traffic Safety Advisory Committee. They do not have an email, so you can feel free to email selectmen@townofberlin.com. You could email my address, townadmin@townofberlin.com, and we would forward any emails to the entire Traffic Safety Advisory Committee. Okay, thank you. Chief, want to move on?
Yeah, well, I think we've covered number 5.
Yep.
Updates on set placement of mobile LED signs. Review of street sign requests, if any.
No new ones.
All right, so then Freddie would be up with South Street Bridge reconstruction and other pedestrian and vehicle infrastructure projects.
Yeah, so when Margaret and I met with VHB, the engineering firm, we kind of introduced the idea of the complete streets down there because a question was raised whether or not we were going to, in the future, expand the width of South Street. So it was presented to them. I did get a copy of the prioritization plan for the capital streets. And that was one of the questions that the engineer had, because in line 1 and line 13, I believe it is, it talks about the sidewalks for South Street, but it's nowhere near that bridge. It basically comes in from South Berlin to a point and comes in from Linden Street as far as the elementary school, I believe. So we didn't know actually how to answer his question as to whether or not the complete streets would ever connect the two together, which would then have us widen the bridge to accept it.
So because the sidewalk network that we were proposing with complete streets stretched out over decades in terms of completion.
Yeah.
I think the resolution was that trying to deal with South Street and Pleasant Street both was going to be fairly difficult, and that South Street, well, Pleasant Street, because it ran by Northbrook Village and had the potential to be able to develop sidewalks without the complexity that, particularly that section below Eddie Ware's house that you're talking about with those bridges and stuff. We just said, for the time being, being able to accomplish the Pleasant Street side of the equation. And again, that's multiple years into the future, was the only option that we really felt comfortable with including in the plan. So South Street, yeah, South Street ended up being left off from along through that stretch in particular. Yep.
Okay, yeah, because that's one thing he did say, that, you know, it would definitely add to the cost, and just design in general would take that much more. We just weren't sure if that was something that the town would pursue eventually or not. So that's why we brought it to this committee.
Our feeling was that once you got, well, to Eddie Ware's house and all Laura's, and that you really didn't end up with a number of residential units until you got way down past Jones Road. And as a result, the benefit, the cost benefit of developing a sidewalk there compared to dealing with the Pleasant Street stretch down all the way to River Bridge eventually is what we talked about, made far more sense. So yeah, I think it would be a while before we really tried to look at that particular piece. I think we'd be more likely to come up with a sidewalk up South Street to Jones Road and then bring Jones Road over to Pleasant and do it that way. And if that was ever going to happen, I mean, even that's a stretch, I imagine, in our lifetimes.
Right, but at least there's more shoulder and things that you can work
Yeah.
with versus filling in. Okay.
Yep.
All right, that should make it a little bit easier now on our end, hopefully. Yeah, so that's actually where we ended up with that bridge, was passing that around. So I'll get back to them and let them know that right now is not an option we're going to take. So hopefully they can start with the original design and engineer. And if all goes well, it's still a 2023 project, fall of 2023.
But Fred, you're expecting that proposal early in January, right? I think they said right after the holidays.
Yeah, because originally it was going to be right around the 10th of December until we sprung this complete streets on them. So that kind of held things up a little bit. So they are hoping for the first part of January to get that back to us.
Yeah.
And now if we take this out, that should actually make it a little bit easier for them. We did get the bridge posted, the signs were ordered, we got them put up. So at least hopefully we can limit the truck traffic that's been going over it, that shouldn't be going over it. Not that they're gonna read them anyway. So maybe we can get some time out of it, but he did say he doesn't expect the bridge to fall down next week, kind of thing. He doesn't think it's in that bad a shape.
And the engineers will not only provide the design engineering for the bridge, but they will actually, there is a small bridge program through MassDOT. So the engineers are willing to actually file the application on our behalf. They will also work on the procurement and lining up the contractor to do the work in conjunction with, with Fred locally. So the engineering here, it's a really good start in establishing this relationship with VHB, which is the engineering firm that we're talking with. They do have some real structural engineer expertise. And in particular, their bridge engineer happens to be, she happens to have worked on the MassDOT small bridge program. So she is closely tied to that program. So I think we're really fortunate and the town will be in good hands with those engineers.
Yes, definitely. I agree with that.
So, Eric, the last thing will be setting a next meeting date.
Oh, I get to set the next meeting date. So let's go, because we're late this month. I don't want to go too early next month. Let's see. 2022, so it'll be Tuesday. Why don't we shoot for the 18th of January? So hopefully if we get those traffic counters up, we'll have a response for Carterville.
At 5:30 again?
5:30 is fine with me.
Sure.
All right, wonderful. All right. Unlike last time, I will really get this posted.
And I'll just report quickly on one item. I met with Sujatha from Central Mass, the traffic department head there, in regard to truck exclusion on Gates Pond Road. And I guess what the state mandates is that there has to be a certain amount of truck traffic. You have to exceed a certain percentage of total volume over the roadway with truck traffic before you have the capacity to restrict. And based on figures that she was looking at from the last time they did a good count of truck traffic segregated from regular traffic, we wouldn't exceed that amount. So I said, well, the first thing we obviously need to do is get a good, thorough, up-to-date count based on the fact that Highland Commons is open now, and the traffic count that we did before was prior to its full occupancy, or it isn't fully occupied now, but I mean, close enough. So they'll in the spring do a count that'll segregate truck and regular vehicle traffic, and we can begin to work off of that and make some decisions about what our options are in regard to truck exclusions.
Tim, where are the trucks going from and to that go down Gates Pond?
Well, I think the concern was that the deliveries might very well increase, and people might very well take shortcuts to come off of certain parts of Marlboro where they were delivering to deliver to Highland Commons. So that was part of the issue, as I recall. But the numbers that we looked at from the counts from the last time they were done really were quite minimal. So the goal now would be to establish how much of an increase there's been since Highland Commons arrived. So we'll do that in the spring.
Tim, do you have, I know that CMRPC is working on the Route 62 corridor study. Was Sujatha able to give you any updates on that, or is that just moving ahead?
That's just, I mean, I was trying to think of, I wasn't pushing that issue as much as I was
yeah,
the truck exclusion. And then we also talked about the East Coast Greenway Alliance, Maine to Florida, that goes through Berlin, and what the impacts were of that. So they're focusing on that a little more right now in regard to Worcester and stuff. So we'll hear more about that later, I think, too.
okay. I don't have anything else. Anybody else have any?
I thought that was great. It's great to see people participate. And
Oh, that was, yeah, that was terrific.
And this neighborhood has got all these other issues related to traffic that, you know, having this pool of folks begin to participate in these discussions would be great. So nice job, Mary.
Yeah, it was great. It was great. It's nice to get everybody in. I mean, we can't get together, so it's nice to have everybody on at least Zoom.
Yeah.
Tim, don't make me do any more petitions, huh? Come on.
It worked.
Well, I mean, look at you. You did a petition and you got what, 18 people to perk up, and yeah, I mean it.
My head's floating. Don't make me do this.
You know, if it was just, hey, do me a favor, get on Zoom next Tuesday at 2 or at
Well,
5:30, you know.
When you think about how many people live in that neighborhood and how many people participated tonight, I mean, that the percentage is off the chart. I mean, it's like trying to get something going in Gates Pond Road, you know, boom. So it's great.
I'm proud of everybody. It's wonderful.
Yep.
Yeah, it was a great discussion. On that note, if there's nothing else, I know I'm non-voting, but I'd move to adjourn.
Well, I'll move to adjourn.
Okay.
Is there a second for that one?
I'll second it.
All right, so we don't have to vote on it, we just adjourn, right? Adjourn at 7:05.
Nice job.
So moved.
Have a good holiday, everybody.